Okay. Hi everybody. Welcome today. Today we have Jennifer Durand. She is an architect, educator, and designer. And she has a very interesting trajectory. And she's now currently working at Zaha. And she's also co-founder of Ola. She has been involved with AI, or we work together. Yeah. Okay. Um, Se me dobló el
Okay.
audio. Yeah. Okay, let's go again. Okay, hi everybody. So we're here today with Jennifer Durand. She is an architect designer. She currently works at Saha. She's also co-founder of Ola and an educator. And she has experimented with AI and all types of technologies in the design process of architecture. And how do you use them essentially to generate either novel forms or how to experiment with them in the whole design process. So you have experience with a lot of these technologies. And you will be sharing with us today a little bit about your own experiments. We also have worked together in the past through Ola, and we develop projects together where we explore these technologies. And so it's really a pleasure to have you, Jen, and the floor is yours, Jen.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Dan. And yeah, I'm going to share my screen. So tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. So hi
Oh, Jen, you
everybody.
might you might want to make it full screen,
Oh, wait,
the PowerPoint.
yes, sorry. Here. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I see it
great,
now. Looks good.
great. Hi everybody. My name is Jennifer Duran, and today I'm going to talk about my trajectory with AI. I call it architectural intelligence, how AI is shaping design. A little bit about me. I am a Peruvian architect. I did my bachelor's in Lima, in Peru, at Ricardo Palma University. I am also a licensed architect in Peru. I did my master's in Spain, and I did several workshops about architecture and technologies, including AABS New York, that are the visiting schools from the Architectural Association. And one of those workshops, I actually met Dan. That's how we met, like back in the days. And yeah, some fluidity workshops and a lot of digital future workshops. Um, the main idea behind this talk for me is that this is what we have as a debate today about AI. Is it is good or is it bad? And I'm going to try to put here my personal opinions about AI and how for me it can enhance design. So these are my phases of my personal journey with AI, starting back in 2020, 2021, when I started using Lunchbox ML, also StyleGAN, CycleGAN, BQM plus Clip, and Recent 50. That was with a project that I was doing with Dan. And in 2022, then we have Midjourney, also DALI, Stable Diffusion, and now, well, 2023, 2024, it has more Midjourney, ChatGPT, we also have Bard, Gemini, and everything else, and it's still evolving. So at the beginning, this is the first thing that I did with AI or machine learning related, and probably doesn't look totally fancy as everything else that I'm going to showcase, but this is like the beginning. This is a prediction of space types that I did with Grasshopper inside Rhinoceros with Lunchbox ML plugin. And what I was actually asking to the computer here was to generate or to recognize the type of spaces of a floor plan that I was making. And I was training the computer with a data set. And this data set has like the bathroom sizes, different type of bathroom sizes, different type of like the main bedroom, secondary bedroom, the laundry room, the living room, etc. And this was for me mind blowing when this happened. This is the end of 2019, entering into 2020. And this was for me the beginning of all this journey. So this was the first thing. Then my first question, as soon as I entered to AI with visual graphics, it was my first question. Probably a lot of people have the same question, but it was, can AI replace me as a designer or can it copy my style? So what I did in this case was training and a style gun based on all the renders or digital projects that I have until that moment that were my own projects and try to see what the computer can understand and can create based on that. And what you're seeing here on the screen is the result of that. And it was actually as you can see, it's still rough. It's not like totally clean design, but this was what the computer can do at that moment in time. And here then I created the images and have some of the images selected. And as you can see here, then the other idea was to translate these geometries into 3D. This was actually with the guide of Carlos Navarro. And in this case, I have here my final 3D model in the right side. Then with Dan and with Gio, Clau and Jose, we developed this project that is the power of data. This was back in 2021. With this project, we actually use real data for creating a virtual building, which has an immersive experience because at that moment we were actually working with metaverse apart from AI. So it was like the two hot topics of the moment, metaverse and AI. And well, we have here the project and we have a hypothesis. Is it possible to make a virtual immersive architecture experience with data extracted from social media to make awareness about our digital footprint? So we are constantly generating a digital footprint. Sometimes we are not even aware of it. So research question what this for the project. And then the building typology is similar to a museum that contains exhibitions that explain its creation as well as the data analysis through a multisensorial experience. And you can see here some of the renders. And for us, we were thinking that, well, for the human being, the center of all the processing is the brain, and we use this as inspiration to locate an artificial intelligent brain that could drive the internal processing of the building itself. And our concept was based on this speculation of what it means to have access to all our data and be able to see the processes that categorize and classify our virtual self. How does our physical self interface with the virtual persona we live online? And who is responsible for all this data management? Do we leave it up to the algorithms to predict our behavior and influence us? There was a lot of questions that we have with the project, and we also make a lot of prototypes because a big part of design is making prototypes. So you can see here a lot of sketches, the multiple sketches, all the iterations that we have for the design. Some of these are like hand sketches, some of these are like virtual sketches. We were actually in different parts of the world while designing, so we have a Miro board where we were designing the same time, just like doing the sketch. And in this manner, we collaborate with AI also as both an agent and a tool of design. And we use machine learning algorithms for data processing and 3D generation, including computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and multimodal text-to-image, such as BQ and Clip. It allows us to experiment and prototype rapidly based on set of created data. A combination of bio-inspired algorithms alongside AI was used to generate a logic for the structure of the entire building. And you can see here that we start using Static Cyclogram, and we cross different type of data types. So we have here body parts with architectural sections, and these were the outputs. And well, we analyze a lot of data, in this case, 34 Instagram profiles, and you can see here all the numbers of what the building was actually going to be trained. And it was actually the computer training 1,464 hours of training. And at that moment, it was a lot. Right now, the computer can do things much more faster, but this was back in 2021. And we also create sculptures based on the real data that we have that represent the 5 states that we were trying to have in our project. That was the mental, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the social. And well, the experience we created was actually for living in the metaverse. So you can see here the building, the final iteration of the building, and that the building actually have a lot of interaction. It has a lot of objects that offer to the user the possibility to actually follow their own piece because it has ramps, teleporters, elevators, and it was very interesting because we can enter through the computer or through the virtual headsets, so you can actually feel the project. And here is just a picture of, well, one of the renders of the final design that we have. This was back in 2021. And upon this moment, this was a very big project that we developed. And then upon from this moment, I started using Midjourney because Midjourney appeared, and I started using Midjourney for creating studies. At the beginning, this was studies for jewelry. because I was trying to have something that I can actually model and I can actually 3D print, because that was something that I wanted to see since we were doing metaverse and a lot of things before, to have something that I can actually have in my hands as a real prototype and that can be inspired by an AI image. And you can see here how it's at the end 3D print. Then I entered to do different studies. In this case, this is studies for master plans. And in this case, I was testing how Midjourney can react or can analyze whatever I was adding as text prompt. It was a lot of a learning curve because I didn't know at the beginning, there was not like totally a guide to how to do it. So I was testing a lot for having the images that you see here. Also, I did studies for skyscrapers, in fluid skyscrapers. And you can see here the most curated ones that I really like how the output of Midjourney at the moment was giving me some ideas that can actually help me do different iterations for design quickly. Then I did some studies for Mediterranean architecture. In this case, as you can see, Midjourney is advancing in time and the details are getting better and probably faster and more clean, and it looks more real in a sense. And then I did some studies for houses. In this case, I was testing in different places to have a house, if it's going to be in the mountains, if it's going to be close to the river, close to the sea, in front of a lake. Then I start asking myself, okay, what happened if I can actually do a sketch and tell Midjourney, can you do this image but in a render mode? And this was the first iterations that I have for the sketch that you can see there, that it was a very quick sketch. And then this is the output that Midjourney was giving me. Then I started doing interior design studies. And in here, I started getting like these amazing outputs. And for me, it was crazy because it looks like a real render, like a final render, with all the lighting, all the effects that you can get either from like Unreal or like Twinmotion or Lumion or whatever render that you're using. But the lighting settings were already there. And here are more interior design studies. In this case, I was testing in the left side for a kitchen and the right side for a pool. And then I started testing for a house in the forest. And well, Midjourney was advancing and I was always getting mind blown with the effects, at least in this case, the lighting reflection that it has in the water. For me, was getting a lot more real in a sense. Also, I did some studies for biomimetic architecture, trying to understand some of the words that we feed when we are training with Midjourney. When we put biomimetic, it always, or at least when I was trying to do some of these iterations, it always have this type of, how do I call it? The curves that it has and the idea that Midjourney has about biomimetic as a word. We can have here some of the outputs. I think that then I realized that we can use other words to actually have better outputs. Also, some of the very clean outputs in here, this is studies for residences with some arches. And as you can see, it looks like a picture that you can find on Pinterest. And then last year, we were doing or it was this year. This year, we were doing a collaboration with Sergio Mutis. And it was for the United Front. It was an exquisite corpse exercise. We were actually, we've been given to a part of the entire project that was the front part of the door that was going to have a design, and we start testing with AI about how we can do the design of this specific part. And in the left side, you can see all the iterations that we have were very quickly and very fast. And in here, you can see where the final output was like a collage of different designers doing well, the project. And in the left side, you can see what we have as model because, well, I manually model it in Maya. And this is the final iteration that we have after all the iterations with AI. And also with AI, we test, this is with cellular automata, and we test to actually bring all of that into a design. And yeah, the resolution of the pixels was too much because it was supposed to be 3D printed. So that's why we didn't follow the cellular automata route and we follow more the Maya route because it was easier to have it more 3D print. And yeah, this was another project that I did. And this is another project. This is a skyscraper iterations. And I think the music is going on. And in this case, what I was trying to do after a while of working with AI and seeing the outputs that sometimes can be very crazy, in this case, it was thinking about, okay, I want to have an output that I can actually model after that. So I was trying to look for a very clean output and something that I can actually then make a topology out of it and use it in, well, create it manually in Maya or in Rhino with any other 3D software. And there was a part when I started thinking, okay, the left side is the AI image and the right side is what I model and then render. So I started thinking what of these images I can actually bring to reality, and I can have something that is similar. Probably it's not going to be totally the same because the left side is also looks a little more like a painting and the right side is the output of a render. And as you can see here, this is the comparison between what the computer can make and what I can make and model based on what the computer, what the computer have as an output. And then I started, rethinking about the sketch to render because I entered to use LookX AI. And in the left side, you can see it's a sketch. And then it start, creating a lot of renders or very quick ideas very quickly because this is not taking a lot of time. So we can actually test some of our ideas in a very fast way. And I was thinking, what is the minimum that you need to feed an AI for the AI to actually understand? And the left side, this is a digital sketch. It has like 3 lines. So this was something that is very, very simple for us to do. I mean, it's done very quickly. And then what you can actually have as an output based on these 3 lines that you have as a sketch. And you can see, well, on the right side, some of the best iterations of it. And this is also a sketch to render. And another thing that I was testing, this is with Comfy AI and with a Stable Diffusion Web UI, using LoRa models that are open LoRa models. And in this case, I model a 3D, this is the 3D model. And then I was feeding the AI with this image and trying to see what can have as output, testing different materials, testing different LoRa's. And you can see on the right side some of the outputs. Then apart from all of that, ChatGPT enters to our lives because it just appeared. And I started using ChatGPT a lot for educational purposes, to asking ChatGPT about a lot of things about animations, about, you can ask about Rhino. I was asking to ChatGPT about Unreal Engine lighting effects, and it can actually give you very nice and very good ideas for continue creating.
Do you think AI is
And
creative?
in here is me testing the ChatGPT now that is with the talking option.
AI can appear creative, especially when it generates new content like artwork, music, or innovative solutions to problems. It uses large amounts of data and patterns it has learned to create something new, which can often mimic human-like creativity. However, AI's creativity is fundamentally different from human creativity. It doesn't possess consciousness or emotional depth, and it creates based on algorithms and data, not personal experience or subjective interpretation. So while AI can perform tasks that require a level of creativity, its process is more about data manipulation than genuine creativity as we understand it in humans. It's a powerful tool for extending human creativity, allowing us to explore new possibilities and ideas more efficiently. What do you think about this perspective?
And yeah, that was me asking ChatGPT. And then I was, here is a comparison about AI and about using the same prompt in all of these years. Since 2021, the first image is not Midjourney, is StyleGun with, StyleGun. And the first, the third, the 3 more images are Midjourney. So 2021 was actually me asking about AI. It's not StyleGun, it was BQ1 plus Clip. So this was the predecessor of DALI. And me asking at that moment, I wanted a candy store and I wanted to have a very, how do you call it, very specific colors. And I wanted that. At that moment in 2021, when you ask, before Midjourney was released, when you ask a computer about that, this is the image that you can get. It was very abstract. It do has the colors, but it was very abstract, so you don't understand it. But only in these 4 years, because it's 4 years of change, then Midjourney appeared, and in 2022, I asked the same thing to Midjourney. And in 2022, we can actually start seeing that it was a candy store and with the same colors. Then in 2023, we can see that it actually adds a person for the scale, and we can see that it is more, how do you call it? It's more, I don't call it perfect, but it's more understandable as an image. And in 2024, apart from all of that, it started to add in the reflection, it is adding more detail for the interior design. It also has the person, and it has all the scale. So in here is a transition of, well, everything that I was asking AI from 2021 to 2024. And also I have a comparison of Midjourney specifically. This is from version 1 to version 6 using the same prompt. From version 1 of Midjourney, asking the things that the same things. It was a lobby with arches and with the vegetation. So you can see in version 1 what Midjourney was generating, and then now what we can have in version 6 alpha. I actually, in this specific case, I like more the version 5 output than the version 6 alpha output, because it changed a lot my idea for the space. But this is the transition that I saw, and for me it's crazy because it's not been, it hasn't been a lot of time between the version 1 and version 6 alpha. So it's advancing so quickly that we need to be aware of that and continue like improving and learning about it. And yeah, for me, that's all. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen, for that. That was a really interesting presentation and tracking all your progress, especially not only your progress, but AI's progress over the last couple of years is incredible. So let's talk a little bit about your background, Jen. Like, where did you start? You say you went to school in Peru, right? And now you're living in London. So talk a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. Wait, I will stop sharing. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I studied architecture in Peru back in 2016. When I finished architecture, I went to Ricardo Palma University in Lima, Peru. And then I was, well, in Peru for some time. I did my thesis, and then I was a licensed architect in Peru in 2018. And then after that, I did my master's, and I finished my master's in 2019. I studied at a university in Spain. I did my master's in Spain, and then I went back to Peru. And the thing what happened between those years was 2019, then we have 2020, that was the pandemic year. And actually, during the pandemic, was that everything started changing for me because I was, well, we were all isolated in our countries. So in that moment, a lot of architecture, how do you call it, architecture studios or architecture workshops that were in presence before, you need to be physically there to actually take the courses, started to become virtual because of the pandemic. And because of that, I started taking a lot of courses from different universities that I really wanted to went before. I mean, the AABS from New York, the visiting school that is in New York, where where we met, was always physical, but that in that moment it became virtual. And I started taking those courses, not only that one, but also with Futurely, also with a lot of courses with Fluidity. And yeah, I took a lot of courses like that. And during the pandemic era, for me, was a lot of training era and a lot of a time for me for meeting a lot of people that, crazy enough, they are right now in London too. So it's like very fun how we met because we all met virtually during those times that were very critical times, but we were all meeting people and I was taking the courses. And then some point, it was in 2022, I took the Digital Futures workshop that was, it was being, how do you call it? It was being taught by Zaha Hadid, and I took the course. It was a 5 day workshop, and I was taking the workshop. We were also teaching another workshop. If you remember that, we were teaching
Yeah.
our own workshop, Cuidola, and I was also teaching at the university at the same time because I taught in Lima, and it was a very crazy week. And I was doing a metaverse project that is well, it's called Under the Cibers because it's a gallery for NFTs. At that moment, NFTs and metaverse were like in the top of, well, everybody want to be part of that, and the creativity and well, like freedom that we can have in those projects were totally different. And well, I took the course, and then after the course, I got a interview with the code, and I did my interview in Peru because I was in Peru. And well, then I got like, well, I got the happy news that I got inside Zaha. And yeah, now I translate all my life from that moment from Peru to London. I have been here almost 2 years already in London. So yeah, that was the transition. And yeah, it's very crazy because everything started probably during the pandemic that I was doing all of these workshops,
Hmm.
learning more. And yeah, I'm still learning a lot because all of these projects that we do, projects that I do apart from Saha, you always need to like continue learning because the technology is advancing so quickly that if you stop learning at some point, you just get kicked out of it
Yeah.
because it's a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And maybe like talk a little bit about, I guess you're interested in these technologies, right? Because obviously over the pandemic, like you said, we had kind of access to workshops or to places that virtually. So we were able to access like certain things that were probably maybe only like like specific cities, right? Like maybe in London or in New York or, you know. So how did your interest, did you always have the interest in these technologies and how did it grow over time?
Yeah, I really like to use, well, I don't call it technologies, but when I was studying at the university, when I was doing my bachelor's, I was always super happy every time that I was doing something related to technology. At that moment, I didn't realize that I was very happy doing that because I thought that we all were during the bachelor time. But then I realized that there was people that were more like into doing history tests, into doing like history of architecture, other people more like about related to structural or to BIM. But during the university, I was very eager to learn like Rhino, Grasshopper. Actually, I self-learned Grasshopper because at that moment we didn't have a course in Peru, at least, that teach you Grasshopper. So I
Mhm.
was learning through YouTube tutorials. Like they were in English and in Chinese. There was no tutorial in Spanish at the moment. And and yeah, I was learning like that. And because I really like it and I want to pursue something that it was in that path, I was always like testing that and learning that apart from studying, well, my courses at the university and using that in my architectural design workshop in the university times. And it was, for me, it was like something normal because I thought that everyone else was doing something similar. But then when I was doing my master's, it was actually my friends and my group of friends that they realized that I was very good in technologies. And the thing in my master's is that we have a very different age gaps. So you can have people that was like 23 and people, I think the oldest at that moment was like 50 years, and we were all architects. So then, yes, you can have architects in different phases of their lives. They start telling you, well, they told me a lot of their career paths about how they were architects, well, in totally different stages in their architectural careers. And then was because of them that I realized that I was actually good in technologies because they started me telling me, because I was using again Rhino Grasshopper at that moment.
Mhm.
And and because of that, they start telling me, yeah, maybe you like this a lot because they don't like it. I mean, there was like, why are we doing this? Because at that moment we have Grasshopper courses, we have virtual reality courses. I mean, I see the headsets for the first time during my master's and I got mind blown. I also saw like the 3D printers. We do have some 3D printers in Peru at the moment, but we're very expensive to actually do something with a 3D printer.
Mhm.
And for me it was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm very good at that because I before of that, because I was not self-analyzing myself, I didn't realize that I was super good for that. But at that moment I realized that yeah, I am, because everyone else was looking at it. They were telling me, "Oh, but you are." And I was like, oh, maybe. So yeah, that's how, I mean, it was a self-discovery thing. I was actually into it, but I was not aware of it until, well, the masters. And then when I come back to Peru, of course, I trying to pursue that. That was
Yeah.
actually very, very difficult because Peru is not a totally technological, well, it's not totally an architecture applied technologies country. It's more traditional in a sense. So yeah, that was the entire path.
And what did you think, for example, when you came back to Peru to teach? And I'm guessing you brought kind of like some of this knowledge or about technologies into your teaching approach. Did you try to like teach students or kind of like bring them to that sort of technological sense of like what's happening maybe like in Europe or something like that into Peru? And how do you see like the education in Peru related to that type of technology?
Yeah, I was teaching at the university and I was teaching the sixth semester, that is half of the career, one semester more. So they already have like a base. And since the beginning, my students realized that my approach is going to be a technological approach. So they can actually test some things that they cannot do in other design workshops because I was actually more open to experimentation. And they really understand that, they really like that. And my workshops, well, my design workshops in Peru, that is called like that, the semester course is called design workshop. And they were always having like students closing the closing date was on Monday for the inscriptions for the workshop, for the design workshop. So everyone was actually very eager to learn more about technologies and about how to apply it. But it's not only about technologies, it's more about how you think as an architect with more open mind. Because for me at that moment was like, if we can do, I mean, if we want to do something, it's possible. We just need to find out how. And I remember because I studied at the same university, sometimes before I have some teachers or different teachers that were more traditional and that have like a totally different mindset. That is like you need to do it as the traditional way that we've been doing it like 80 years ago. And for me, it was not like that. For me, it was like we can do whatever we want to do, but we really need to know how, and we need to test for that because that's how you do new type of design. If not, it's going to be the same and the same. So for me, that was very difficult probably at the beginning because a lot of teachers have another type of mindset while teaching. But at least in the design workshop I was, they give me a lot of freedom to create my own, well, curricula for the students and my own syllabus so they can actually test different things. And I was also teaching them Rhino, Grasshopper, Maya. Nobody teach Maya in Peru, and I was teaching. And for the students was a totally different and new things because they do have 3D modeling courses, but are always related to Revit and to, well, 3ds Max. That is mainly what they have before. And I was introducing Rhino because they can actually use Grasshopper. I was also introducing Maya, and my students were very, how do I call it? it, they were very interested in that and they were actually pursuing that, and some of them already are graduated already, and they continue with the path because they know the tools and they really like technology, and well, not exactly only technology, but have the mindset of creating something that is new and that you can actually apply that in Peru, because that's what I did as soon as I come back, trying to apply everything that I knew to Peru. And yeah, I actually have that as an, well, as a highlight for me because my students are still very happy. I talk with some of my students still. And then yeah, I teach the sixth semester and I also teach at the end. My last course was the third semester students. So it was the third semester in architecture. And I realized that because they didn't have 5 semesters before, the creativity that they have and they don't have, how they call it, because when you are having the career in architecture, you already have a mindset about what you can do, what you cannot do, because you are creating this mindset because you are having the career. But when I teach the third semester students, they didn't have the mindset totally created, so they have a lot of more freedom for designing, and for them it was actually more fast to pick and to understand what can be do, what can you do, what can you apply. And for them, it was actually faster to learn the software. They learned the software super fast. And for me, it was very crazy to actually see that because I realized that, of course, if we actually want them to use software, even if it's like Beam or whatever else, at least in my university, it's not since the first semester, it's always from like the fourth semester until the 10th semester. But because they were very young and they were doing physical models, of course, and translating these physical models into a 3D model, and they were doing both. So it's a back and forth, and they are learning both the manual skills, but they are also learning how to apply that in a 3D modeling software and how they can do like the iterations in between.
Yeah, interesting. So it's kind of like opening them up to like a sort of world that they can then take on and go with that. And talk a little bit now about like your path with AI because you kind of like also recorded like during this time of like diving into AI, and we did a project together, and it was kind of like AI focused because based on our interests with Ola and like the whole team. But maybe talk a little bit about AI and how you think it's now affecting like architecture design, right? Because it is having an impact, and you kind of show the progression of like the quality of images, right, through your tests, and you're getting to like a point where like yes, you can get like these nice like imaginative spaces that like you having the skill of using that like model and software. Now you can kind of like translate them into like a 3D architectural project. So talk about that a little bit because that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, using AI since the beginning of, I mean, the first version of AI that I use with Midjourney and everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
the very beginning that I showcased that was the Rhino Grasshopper thing. That was totally not probably like visual enough. But since the beginning, what we can do with AI is actually for us as architects to make things more automatized in a sense. And we can do, for me at least, this is personal opinion, but I think that we can do more fast iterations for design. Because what happened with a design is that we do, imagine 200 iterations for a house. And you're not going to build the first design idea that you have, because then you have the client, then you have
Mm.
other people talking about the design. So you need to change the iterations and you have the final design. But what happened with AI is that when you have an idea, imagine that you want to do a skyscraper and you're thinking, okay, it can be like this, it can be like that, but then you can visualize it faster. And then you can start discarding ideas that you are not going to use because it's like, okay, this was a, or sounds like a good idea in my mind. But then when you look at it, it's like, okay, maybe it's not going to be that path what I'm going to pursue. Maybe I'm going to go with other path. And for me, that's the thing with AI now, that we can actually use it in very early stages of design when we are doing concept sketches and concept design, when we are starting to think about what is going to be the main idea behind AI, well, not behind AI, but behind the project, and using AI to actually enhance our idea. Because that's one part that we can use AI for. And the other part is for inspiration. Of course, depending on what type of AI we're using, we can have something that, imagine that I do a cube in 3D, just a cube, and I input that picture. If I use Comfy and with a stable diffusion, you can actually control more what is going to be the output that if you use Midjourney with the same cube, because Midjourney has another type of creative, what do you call it, the creation, the idea of the creation behind the design, even though you have a picture as base. So of course, depending what you want to do. Sometimes if you want, that's why I have the interior design iterations, because for me that is like looking at a Pinterest board that at some point before, every time that we were looking, okay, what is going to be the trends for interior design? You have all these trends of everything is going to be wood, everything is going to be metal. And before it was always like looking to Pinterest or looking into architectural magazines about interior design. And now you can actually ask AI for different spaces with different materials, and then you can see, have your own mood board of a material palette that then you can apply to the space. At least Midjourney for me is not specifically that it can actually give you a control render output, because it doesn't work like that. It's more like a creative type of output that then you can have a lot of things as a collage, and then you can see, okay, maybe I really like metal with this wood, with this type of plants, and then you can actually use it like that as inspiration. Then if we want something more control, is either Comfy with a stable diffusion. I also test DALI inside ChatGPT that actually is giving control, but the result is not totally polished. At least it's not in the presentation. That's my last things that I was testing with ChatGPT while talking with ChatGPT. But yeah, I mean, this is like that. Depending what you want to do, that's what you can actually use AI for. But for me, it's already part of our design process. It's like we cannot, I mean, for me, it's like we cannot not use AI. It's like we need to use it because it's already there, and we cannot be like
Mhm.
blindfold and said, okay, no, I don't want to use it because I want to do things traditionally. And we can do things traditionally, but even traditionally, you look for references and stuff like that.
So at this point in time, like you said, like you're basically already incorporated as part of like that initial design process, and it's now it's kind of like now like instead of like starting like you can start from like a sketch, but like instead of starting from like a point like that or like building up a mood board from like Pinterest, like you said, you can just dive into like Midjourney or whatever other tool you use and start generating your sort of mood board or like your design concepts, and then curate from that and then build out from there.
Yeah, at least for me, it's like that. We can actually, I mean, I already have it integrated in my design process. It's part of it. As for me, it's part of it to draw something because a sketch is a part of my design process too. It can be a digital one, it can be a manual one, but it's part of it. And then AI is also part of the process. And then it can actually generate things more quickly. And at least when you are doing iterations for design and when you're using a control AI such as Stable Diffusion or LookX, you can actually have different iterations for the same design, a lot of iterations, so you don't probably, let's call it, don't waste more time doing iterations that is not going to be feasible at the end.
And how I guess in that sense, do you think it makes you like a better designer as like the traditional approach? Like, is it enhancing your design abilities?
I don't know if I can call that we are better designers because of AI. I think that that's actually a good point because a lot of people hate AI because they think it's going to replace the architecture creative process. For me, it's not that it's going to replace us as architects. That's why I was asking ChatGPT if it thinks that AI is creative and what the ChatGPT thinks about that. But I don't think that they can replace us because at least for AI to replace us, they need to understand how our creative brain works. And that's one thing that I think is more tricky to do because of course AI can have like composition and can have like some of the parameters that make like visually a good design. But the thing with creativity, and that's something in our brain that is not totally, let's call it, there is not a lot of studies yet about how we as humans are creative. So if there is no way of how are we creative, because maybe I can see, I don't know, I can see like a bottle of water and then I can remember something that happened to me before with a bottle of water. And based on that, I remember another thing. So in my brain, there is a lot of memories connected. And at the end, something happened and it became a design after all of this process. But of course, the computer cannot do that because for doing that, we need to understand how our brain made those connections with ideas and actually have the output. The computer right now, what it's doing is to having the composition, to having, I mean, the good eye for the design. I mean, it looks nice, but then when you are thinking about it, it doesn't have like a soul still, and we have that like soul of the design. And so for me, it's like that. That's the how do you call it? The difference between what the computer can do and what we can do right now as designers. For me, that's why it's not like it can replace us. Not yet, because at least for creativity, it's very difficult how the computer is going to think the same way we think.
Yeah. And I think the other part about it that you touched is like the automatization of like some of these processes, right? And architecture has like a lot of like in between processes to get to like the final stage of a building.
Yeah.
Now, do you see AI impacting, I guess, like some of these processes, like completely automated them, where like maybe like it does automate like a part of the architect's workflow? And is that something that you expect that would happen in the near future? And I guess like, yeah, would that really affect architects in that sense? Like, would that help us become more efficient in some processes?
I mean, more efficient, I think that, yeah. I think that one of the things that probably a lot of people is waiting about is that, of course, we can have right now a good AI that can give us 2D visual outputs, but we are waiting for the time that AI can actually translate this 2D visual output into a good 3D clean mesh model. And I think that's probably the next step because we do have for creating this 2D into a 3D, we start doing a lot of iterations of design in a 3D model software, and we do it manually now. If AI is going to do it at some point and is going to do faster than us for sure, then we're not going to waste 4 hours doing a design. It's going to be just like 1, 2 minutes, and then you have already the 3D model. And what is going to happen for us as architects when that is the point? Then we're not modeling, we're not doing the 2D. What is going to happen with us? For me, at least, it's like, of course, AI can do that, but as architects, we also need help in other parts of architecture because for finishing a project, we have like plans, floor plans, and all of that that is not automatized yet. Of course, we have Beam and we have Revit, but that part also needs automatization. What happens if we change well, the living room size and everything changed automatically. I see that there are, well, because I research about it, and there are some new startups looking about that, and like some companies that are looking about what is going to happen with this, what is going to happen with that. That's another part of the architectural process that we actually need to enhance and to automatize.
Mhm.
And then also the construction part. Nobody's like, well, not nobody. There is some people doing it, but the construction part is actually needs the help of AI too, because we want to build things faster, at least if we can to build it faster. And if AI can help us with that to automatize some processes during the construction phase, that's going to be like the next step. But for me, it's like we are dividing. I mean, as architects, we have a process we're designing. We have the conceptual stage, then we have already like all the floor plans and all over the schematic design stage, and then we also have like the construction stage, and we also have when we are doing the design and we are talking with the municipality, and we have all of this paperwork that needs to be filled for actually building a project. If that can be automatized, that would be amazing. That's actually a lot of work, and we do it. And and yeah, of course, there is a lot of parts that AI needs to help us. For me, it's better if it can help us because I mean, we do it, but it's not that
Mhm.
we are doing it creatively. It's just we are doing it like manually as we always been doing it. So yeah, those things for me are interesting. I think that architecture is, of course, we have the creative part, but we have a lot more. And yeah, AI needs to help us if it can, then I mean, then we can do things more faster probably. And it would be amazing to look at that at the moment it happened, because it would
Yeah.
be, yeah, we can have more time after that. I mean, we're doing the design, but then you can have more free time because some of the process of a project is automatized.
And the other, I guess, like related to that, because I guess all those little pieces involve like a specific domain expertise, right? Like it's somebody that has like a specific set of skills for that process. Do you find, for example, in the case of like ChatGPT or these types of models, that I don't know if you tried it before, but that they are able to compress, let's say, some of these like knowledge bases, and like you can ask it or deploy certain things. I think you showed a slide where you were asking it like how to do something in Maya, right? And it'll give
Yeah.
you like the step-by-step guide. Do you find that useful? Is that something that's like helping you speed up your workflows or in like your design work?
Yeah, for me, it's super useful. It's like having like a teacher that is your personal teacher, but it's about very specific things that sometimes, I mean, before when you were learning, you need to learn based on the software, or you learned alone, or you ask a friend, or you find a workshop, a tutorial, or something. Now, if you want something and it's very specific, even if it's very specific, you can ask ChatGPT,
Mhm.
and the majority of the times it's going to give you a good answer that can be easily applicable to whatever you're doing. So if you are actually before you can get stuck while doing something, because it's like, okay, I don't know how to do this lighting effect, and then you will do it at the end, but it would take you longer because you are
Mhm.
discovering it. And now it's faster because ChatGPT gives you the answer already. And that's one of the things that can help with ChatGPT. The other thing is when you are doing, how do you call it, like a scripting, like a small scripts in Grasshopper, and it can actually give you an output also, and that takes long when you're doing it yourself because you're thinking, you're remembering, and you are writing it. And now you can actually use ChatGPT for that also. And it's, I mean, it has some how do you call it, some boundaries that doesn't pass, because I was testing a lot of things and some of the things are still not making total sense, but
Yeah.
it's getting there. So it's, I mean, it's being trained. It's not that it's there already. But I think that in the future, when it is going to be more, not 100% there, but probably an 80% there, it's going to be faster for us because we're automatizing processes that before took us long time. It was like, okay, 2, 3 hours doing something, and now you can have it in minutes talking with ChatGPT. So for me, it's like, okay, we use it a lot. I mean, I use it a lot every day, and
Yeah.
I use a lot that, I use a lot Midjourney. It's like things that I'm always using.
Yeah, and there's like a saying that it's that people are pretty much saying like ChatGPT or like this type of tech, it's like the worst that it's ever going to be, right? Like it's at this moment in time. So like this is the worst that it's going to be. It's only going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's why I have like the comparison between Midjourney, because at the
yeah.
beginning, of course, nobody believing it because you see the version 1 and now you see version 6 alpha. It's like, okay, oh, well, version 6, version 5, you see the transition. And of course, right now, I think it's training. And I think it's not going to be a super long time until we see the results because with Midjourney, it was like 2, 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, about 2 years, 2021, 2022, I think it came out with the first version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
amazing. And then Jen, like one more thing is like, how do you see, for example, in the case of like students or like people that are not coming into this field, right? Um, how do you see them, I guess, like using this technology? Do you think it's something that should be taught like in all kind of like architecture design schools? I mean, like people are already aware of like the impacts, but like should students be taught as like, part of like the tech course or something like that, part of studio?
Yeah, I do think it needs to be part of the studio as part of the initial explorations, because as I was saying, we cannot deny that it's already in our lives of architects. So if they finish university or finish a master's and they don't know how to use these technologies, then they're going to be in a disadvantage because of course everyone else is using it. And I think that they really need to like teach that in the university even when they are learning things, because you can learn so many things with well, ChatGPT. At least you can learn so
Hmm.
much, but also it has like a pros and it has cons. The cons for me is that when you have something with Midjourney or with DALI or with well, stable diffusion is another one, but when you have something, maybe you lose track of the scale when you are doing something, because sometimes it puts like a person that is huge and then sometimes like a person that is super small. For me now, of course, I can tell the person is small, this is not in perspective and those type of things. But when you are learning in the university, you are still learning those concepts. So it needs to be taught in a way that is actually aware of those things. It's like you're learning about a scale still, you're learning about perspective, you're learning about all of these little things. And I know that, I mean, for me now, it's like, oh, everyone knows that. But then I remember, no, but when you're in the university, the first year, the second year, you don't know all of those concepts. So you really, if they are really going to start using it at the university, they need to use it like with a lot of, how do you call it? I mean, when they are starting to teach it, they need to teach it in a sense that they can actually realize that some of these things, whatever it is, the output is, it can has flaws. It's not that it's a totally curated output, and with that you're already an architect. It's not like that. It's like the people, or well, the students need to be aware of that, because maybe at the beginning it's like, okay, it's faster, it can make you a render or something, so now you don't want to think about anything else because it's already there. But when you are studying, you are actually needing to learn about the other things. I mean, not only about how the visual output looks like, but well, what's the concept behind the design? If you are making, I don't know, a double height space, if why you are making a double height space, the areas. Something that I want to see at some point is that imagine that we say to AI, okay, I want to do a museum, and the AI can actually give you like the boxes, the program boxes that we need to use for doing the museum. So these type of things that can be automatized, and we do because we have an Excel table with all the
Hmm.
areas and all of these things. And of course, when the students are doing a project, maybe they put museum and the museum scale is huge, but what they need to actually design for the design studio is actually smaller in scale. But they don't realize that because they don't know about that yet. So they
Hmm.
can just try to put that is huge into a very small space, and then it's going to look strange. Also about the context, because some things that happen with AI is that, of course, when you are doing design studio, at least what I did when I was studying in Peru, the majority of the designs are related to your local neighborhood, or well, in Lima, because we were in Lima, you are designing here, you're designing there. So you need to be aware of what is happening in your context. Sometimes with AI, it has a context, but it's not totally the same context that you are going to use. So then you can get a little confused with that. And yeah, I think that they need to teach it, but it needs to have some parameters. And I
Hmm.
think, but this needs to start like, how do we call it? It needs to start now, because I don't think that the parameters and all of these things are going to happen from day one to day two. It's going to be like a progression of how they start teaching it, how they introduce it and introduce this into a syllabus, into a curricula, and Yeah, I tried when I was in Peru teaching. You don't remember that I try with my students and I invite you to teach them. In that moment, I think it was with collab,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it was for us was like totally logical. For the students was like they were mind blown because it was a lot of information. So yeah, it was like we need to teach these things, but like step by step. So when they are, I mean, in half of the career or something, they actually have, as they have already an architectural knowledge, and they also have AI knowledge because I think they need to use it too.
Yeah. So like good point that you make there. It's like, yes, like there's still kind of some architectural intelligence or knowledge for design that students have to learn, like to be able to interpret these things or to be able to drive design. But then the other thing is like that you mentioned is like now it's like so accessible too, like this technology that anybody can just hop in and like go, right? Like that's kind of like the other part about it. So people can like experiment and
Yeah,
just go. Yeah.
yeah, one of my last experiences is that I was teaching for kids, and these kids were like 9 to 10 years, and one of the kids actually used DALI for doing a design. He has 10 years, 9 to 10. So I
Yeah.
know that it's totally accessible. He's not an architect, but he's already using the technology because it's there. And of course, when we are teaching for the people that is going to be an architect, we need to actually teach all of the other stuff, not only like to have the final visual output, but to actually has the design thinking behind it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And Jen, since we're coming up on the hour, some final closing words. What advice, well, I guess you can kind of already touch on the advice of students. Uh, but what advice would you give to somebody kind of like seeing AI being developed this fast and how they should sort of think about it in architecture, essentially? Like how should they think about AI in architecture?
I think the first thing is don't be afraid of it. That's the first thing that I would say. Don't be afraid because, of course, it's going to be developing very fast. But you can start with something small, like you can start with probably like if you want to have Midjourney or LookX, there's a lot of AI that right now is free. Also, ChatGPT is free, and you can start small, and you don't need to manage everything in once. So if you are learning architecture and you want to apply it, you can do it. So you can do it like step by step, and it's not something that is going to happen. You learn yesterday and today you're a master. It's not going to happen like that. It's a progression also for an architect to learn the skills because at some point we were calling that it's going to be a text from engineers and a lot
Yeah.
of words that start to appear because it was never like that in the past, and we are always in this change. So I think that yeah, the thing for students and for architects in general is that we always need to be open to this change and just continue to embrace it and continue to learning because if we don't learn then we get stuck and then we just continue to do things in a traditional way. And I think that that's the most critical thing for me as an architect because we're always trying to do new things, not trying to repeat things that were done in the past already. Probably we're trying to find something that is new, and for doing that we're going to probably fail a lot. And that's the other thing. Don't be afraid to fail where you are testing. It's not that the first image that you're going to have is going to be the image that is going to be super clean and super amazing. Maybe yes, maybe no. Then you need to actually iterate again with the text. If you're doing something with a text prompt, redo the text,
Mhm.
redo whatever you're saying, the composition, the lighting. So it's a lot of fail through the process. It's not that everything is going to appear from today already I enter and already a master. So yeah, I think it's a lot of patience also. So be
Yeah.
patient with your own process because everyone has different speeds with learning and will applying the technologies. I saw that because we're will teaching, I saw different speeds of my students. Some were very fast doing something very specifically, others were very fast doing another thing very specifically. And everyone has their own different speed. And I think that that's an important thing. If you discover your own speed, then you can work upon that.
Awesome. And Jen, is AI creative?
I think it's not there yet. Not was saying that it's creative already. I think that we need to
Yeah,
understand how are we creative? That's the main
yeah,
question. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. Thank you, Jen, for being a part of this. It was a great discussion and a great presentation. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And you can follow Jen on her social media. We left the link at the bottom. And looking forward to seeing more of your work in the future, Jen. So thank you
Thank you,
again.
Dan. Yeah, thank you, Dan, for having me. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye.